It's like how it like Lord of the Rings is like the most important singular like cultural phenomenon of like the
Right.
last 15 years. It's like
Yeah.
it, and people were like didn't get that Sean Bean was like making Lord of the Rings references. It's like
He was effing with everybody for like 5 minutes, and it was just so beautiful. I loved it.
that was so good, and I just that movie was great, and
It's a fantastic movie. I think it's one of Ridley Scott's best. And it's weird that a friend of mine and I were having a conversation about that, about how he's going to be 70 years old. And I told him this guy's going to go down swinging. Like he's betting 1,000 until the last day that he breathes, which is cool. And, I posited the question was like, do you think he got this last gust of wind in his career because his brother committed suicide and he feels he owes it to him? And then he threw something at me that I didn't know about. Apparently, when Blade Runner was about to be made, Ridley Scott lost his son. So
whoa,
there's that whole emphasis on mortality in that movie. And I've always known that the movie doesn't match up with Philip K. Dick's story.
yeah,
The basic conceit is there, but it veers wildly.
yeah,
And now I understand. Now I get it. I get why he did that in Blade Runner. And I'm thinking, is there a correlation? He loses his brother, and now he feels he's got to throw himself into this work and try to work out the death through his work. I mean, what do you think?
and what's even more interesting is that he's going back to that well, and they're gonna do this Blade Runner sequel, which I don't know how I feel about it, but if it can get Harrison Ford up off the couch, it's got to be something. And and that makes me happy. And the fact that Denis Villeneuve is going to direct it, like I'm I would be opposed to a Blade Runner reboot or sequel under any other circumstances than that. But man, like I saw Sicario this week, and it is
Oh, God, I
just
want to see that.
oh, it's just it's amazingly terrible and awesome. Like, did you see Prisoners?
Yes. Yeah,
It's
finally.
I
Yeah.
think I think Prisoners is the better movie. Because Gyllenhaal and Jackman are great in that, and it's amazing. And he kind of swaps out this like kind of less is more thing that he did in Prisoners to build this tension, and instead we've got like really over the top violence that is treated completely casually because it's like these people are so desensitized to it, and like because that's what the drug war has done, and it's like it's terrible, but it's very real. And um i I don't know, I found it a fascinating movie, although very very depressing, like on the in the same vein as like Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, and Platoon.
Well, I think the difference between Prisoners and Sicario, and I haven't seen Sicario yet, is the fact that Sicario is very much probably happening right now.
Oh yeah.
I'm not very. I mean, I can guarantee you something like that's happening in Mexico. CIA is involved, and we're helping the killing, and we're propagating this entire mess. Uh, so I think that gives it more weight, and I can't wait to see it because that's one movie that I really, really want to go see.
The great thing about this is I feel like Benicio del Toro in Sicario is like he's like the little red ball, and it's like they're playing that like game of three card Monte or whatever, and they're like, "Where's the ball? Where's he at? Which cup is it in?" And they keep moving it around, and he's like he fades into the background for a while, and then he comes back out, and you don't know a whole lot about what's going on, but he's just kind of there and watching everything, and he comes out and does something, and then fades back into the shadows, and then the last act of the movie, um it just becomes him, and it's like he's waited for this opportunity, and you figure out like what his story is and what's been
Huh.
going on this whole time.
He's like a Gandalf figure then.
Yeah,
I'll
kind of.
trouble you, I'll disappear, figure crap out, I'll come back, and at the very end, I'm gonna whoop some.
except he's like an evil Gandalf. Well,
Ah,
well, maybe not evil. I mean, that's the real question here because everyone in this movie is essentially evil, except for Emily Blunt and her partner, who are just literally along for the ride.
I
And
love Emily Blunt. I think that's the one actor that we should really pull up as the female badass. As much as I love Scarlett Johansson playing Black Widow, Emily Blunt's been doing it on so many levels, man. I love her.
okay,
She's so fantastic.
yes, you're right, but look over your shoulder for 1 second. Look over your right shoulder.
Well, she's yeah. Well, we haven't
And
seen her yet.
Gwendolyn Christie. And Gwendolyn Christie, yes.
Yeah, we haven't seen her yet, and I can't wait till I see Captain Phasma in action. It's gonna be
I
so
have
awesome.
seen literally less than 5 seconds of Captain Phasma. I haven't heard her speak a word of dialogue, but she's gonna be my favorite part of the movie, I think.
She's gonna kick ass. Yeah.
Awesome. She's gonna be the Boba Fett for this new movie. It's like the character who has all the style and is super awesome and isn't the main character, but is just everyone's like, that's the badass right there.
I can't wait, man. I'm so pumped for this movie. I can't wait. I'm literally losing sleep over it. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll like, oh god, it's just 2 more months.
75 days, or is it 74 now?
I think it's 75, isn't it?
Yeah.
What day are we? 17th. It's December 16th, right? Or 17th? What December? What?
Yeah, December 17th, but they'll do preview screenings on the 16th then probably. So
I think this is the one time that I'm not going to do preview screens because I want to experience everything with everybody else. However, if you should have an extra ticket, I will drive up to Austin and just hang with you and watch this.
I'll do that. Well, here's the question is like the last big Disney movie, like they wouldn't let us bring plus ones in because they're like, we have very limited numbers. And so, it was Ant-Man. That's what it was. It's like, we can't let you have plus ones or whatever. So I don't know what they'll do with Star Wars. But like The Martian, different studio, but they did 3 different preview screenings of that. And so like there was obviously a great deal of opportunity to see that. If there's a chance, I think I have to take my kids, but if I can take more people too, absolutely.
Let me know, man.
Oh, and I have a present for you.
Cool.
I got a movie poster of the Scorch Trials.
Nice.
I'm gonna shoot me your address and I'll mail it to you. I'll put it in a tube and send it over.
Cool.
But with that, let's actually get going talking about Doctor Who.
Nice.
Oh yeah. So this week we have a ton to talk about. Not only do we have the 3rd episode of Series 9, Under the Lake, we're also going to talk about the name of the Doctor, the day of the Doctor, and the time of the Doctor, and finish off the Matt Smith. I'm almost done Doctor Who at this point, completely caught up. I just got to a very tragic part in Dark Water. So for those listening along at home, you probably know what that is. I will finish all of that off by next week, absolutely, and be completely caught up to be able to talk about next week's episode, Before the Flood. But before we talk about any of that, we got some huge news this week about Doctor Who. There's going to be a new spin-off series.
Yes.
Yay! It's going to be called Class. And the class refers to the Coal Hill School, where what's her name? Where Clara teaches, and where Mr. Pink used to teach. Sadness. And probably I'm betting by the time this show happens, where Clara probably will have used to have taught. because I'm the fact that she isn't mentioned as being a part of this at all, even showing up in the first couple of episodes or something, leads me to believe the tragic ending that we all think is coming is in fact coming.
Right.
And so this is going to be set in the Coal Hill School. It is essentially going to be the kids of the school dealing with the monsters of the Doctor Who universe. So Torchwood for teens, Buffy meets Doctor Who. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting off all of this. The other thing that I thought was super interesting about all of this was who the co-showrunner is along with Moffat. It's a YA author that I've actually never read any of his books, named Patrick Ness. But Mark, you seem to be familiar with some of his stuff.
Yeah. Well, with my job, I kind of have to.
Yep.
Because it's YA and I'm a teen services librarian. So this guy is pretty big. A Monster Calls is a book that I've read that I really, really liked. And he writes along the same vein as Neil Gaiman, sort of, where a lot of his work is classified as children, young adult, but there are some very heavy themes that he works with. Neil Gaiman is the same way. Like, Coraline is not just a story about this sweet little girl who goes into another world or whatever. It's actually kind of a little girl with an attitude who gets taught a lesson by some evil ghosts.
Yep.
That's Neil Gaiman style. This guy is along the same vein. There's a lot of horror bits, but not pure horror. So his most famous book is A Monster Calls, and it's actually a book that he wrote based on an idea of a friend of his who was dying of cancer, who died of cancer. She didn't get to actually start writing the story, so he did it for her. So he gives her credit for the idea of the book, but he wrote the book. So the book is about this kid who has nightmares at the same time every night at 12:07. And he wakes up at 12:07 because of the nightmares. And on one of the occasions, he notices there's this monster by his window who beckons him, and he tells him, I've got a story. I got stories to tell you. I will tell you stories, and then you tell me yours, right? So they have that relationship, and at first it's just this kind of scary story, and the kid goes back to sleep, and no biggie. Well, it so happens that now every time that he meets with the monster and he tells him the story, there is something that happens the following day. Now the kid, his mom is sick. His dad's not around, and he has a real horrible relationship with his grandmother. So on one of the first stories where there's a consequence to it, the next day his grandmother's house is ransacked and there's a big gigantic mess, and he gets blamed for it. One of the other stories that he tells the kid, on the following day, the monster kind of possesses the kid, and he beats up on a bully that has been beating on him throughout the year, right? So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on, and it's pretty entertaining, and it's really cool, like a grown-up Goosebumps type of thing. And that's the feel I get for the new the spinoff. It's kind of goosebumpy.
Mm-hmm.
But the real cool thing is that when the monster finally tells him, I'm done with the stories, now you tell me yours, we finally get a complete view of what has been going on with this kid. He's been bullied, beaten up, ignored, neglected, and we find out his mother is dying of terminal cancer, and he doesn't know how to deal with this. So the story that he tells the monster is about that. And now he's afraid of losing his mom, and how he doesn't want to lose her. So he tells the story. The story ends, and it's 12:07 on the dot when he finishes telling his story. And at 12:07 at the hospital, his mom dies.
Yeah.
So it's a heavy story. It's not purely meant for kids, because I don't know how like young kids could deal with something like that. But this is the kind of genre that he writes in. So I am really happy that this guy is going to be the co-runner of this show, because he brings that sensibility. There's gonna be horror. It might be brought down a notch for kids to be able to, I guess, relate to it. But I do like the fact that there's going to be that dark aspect to it, because I don't want to see just like, oh, scary monster of the week, like really goosebumpy type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want R.L. Stine. I want a bit of that, but I want Gaiman scariness. I want the Moffat mystery, and I think that's what we're going to get. And I'm really prepared to get into this. I hope it really sells to everybody, and I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be cool.
Oh my God, Gershberms, my favorite books. Anyway, yeah, no, so yeah, I'm definitely getting a little bit of that off of him. But the other cool thing is he ended up adapting this into a screenplay, and they're filming it right now, and it's going to come out next year, starring Liam Neeson as the monster and Sigourney Weaver as the grandma. So, obviously someone saw his screenwriting ability and saw his writing ability and said, this is the guy. He's contributed to the Doctor Who universe in a small amount before. He wrote a short story called Tip of the Tongue for the 50th anniversary compendium, a story about the Fifth Doctor. So I think that's interesting. Did you ever read that? Do you know that? That seems kind of obscure even for...
I haven't read it. There's a lot of the Whovian stuff that's been written that I have not read. And but it's because I got so much crap to read all the time, man.
Yeah.
Because I got to stay up with the genre that I work in. But I will tell everybody who's listening, all two of you, if you're really interested in this author, Patrick Ness, I would really recommend reading the Chaos Walking series that starts with The Knife of Never Letting Go. It's really, really good. It really sucks you in. And I think it's 4 books in that series now. Highly recommend it. There's a lot of junk in YA. A lot of junk. There's just a whole bunch of crap. But there are a handful of authors that write very, very, very well. And a lot of these books, even though they're classified as YA, they're kind of meant for adults as well. I have a lot of fun with them. And this guy's one of the authors that make the genre really happen.
Well, that seems to be the new thing in YA, is to find these YA stories that appeal also to adults. I mean, Harry Potter and Maze Runner and Hunger Games and Golden Compass and all of these. I mean, and everybody's looking for that like next franchise, that next big thing. To me, he really just sounds like a you mentioned Gaiman. I think that sounds right. But it also seems very Moffat-esque, telling these kind of fairy tale stories, and I'm expecting that's kind of what we're going to get. Yeah, I think we probably will get some Monster of the Week, because there's going to be an obligatory Cyberman episode, and there's going to be a Dalek episode, and whatever else they're going to do. So, but that should be fun. And I just got through watching the episode with one of the school kids where they're up on the moon. And, I really liked that. So I feel like if they're able to develop a core team of characters that work like that, I think that's going to be the key. Is you've got to create that team. The fact is, we don't know who any of these people are, so they're starting with a complete blank slate. Right. So,
and I like that. I like the mystery of what's to come. I hope we get some real good actors there, and I hope. I'm pretty sure the stories will have meaning. And like you said, there's bound to be Monsters of the Week. That's cool. But if they handle them well, I'll be really happy with that. I actually would like to have an episode where there's a stupid Dalek. He's just the dumb one they left behind, and the kids are just messing around with him until he pisses them off. That would be kind of cool.
That would actually be really funny and kind of cool.
It would be awesome, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, in that same way that Buffy does, where they can bring some of the humor and some of the universalness of, the whole appeal of putting a show in high school is that it's really tough growing up and finding yourself, and using these kind of science fiction stories to illuminate some of those truths, I think, is a great idea.
Right.
I think it also shows, and maybe this is me being a little bit cynical, but I think they might be aware that they're losing some of their younger audience since the departure of Matt Smith. That the kids don't like angry eyebrows Capaldi. And so they're like, well, let's give them this that's going to be Doctor Who, but it's going to give them younger people to relate to. So
I think you're onto something. I think that has a lot to do with it. I'm really excited about this. I love how, especially how Patrick Ness uses monsters as proxies for everything that you fear as a teenager. All those doubts, all those insecurities, and he makes them into monsters. And in a lot of his books, they have to face. They must. There's no working around it. They must face it. And it's a pretty good message to kids. Like you can't just avoid the things that make you feel the way you do. You have to face them straight on and deal with them. This is how you're going to work things out in life. So I hope it's like that. There's going to be a lot of speculation from now till then, but we'll see how it turns out. I'm feeling positive about this. I'm pumped, and I'm hoping for the best. Hopefully, next year we'll find out.
Yeah, me too. So speaking of being positive about things, I obviously did not get to this week's episode, but why don't you tell me what you thought of what is it called again?
Under the Lake.
Under the Lake. I've already forgotten it.
There's lots of water happening. Actually, no, just a very little bit. So this episode was actually pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good departure from the first two. We get Clara insisting that she wants an adventure, and I think this is really going to culminate to something terrible, because this is like the third straight episode where she just says, I want adventure. I need adventure. So I think Moffat's trying to build something there. So she's telling the doctor she wants to go to this place and that place, and he's outside of the TARDIS, and he's telling the TARDIS, what's wrong? Have I made you angry? Like, there's something going on there, which of course we don't know about. And then he tells Clara that, we're here for a reason. So they get off of their ship, out of their TARDIS, and they start exploring the ship. They don't know exactly where they're at. And they confront what they think are two people. And when they get up and turn around, they see, nope, these aren't people. And they look like ghosts. They have hollowed out eyes that you can see the back of their heads. And one of them, we know who it is, because prior to Clara and the doctor even arriving, there is a sequence of events of the people that are living in this underground colony thing. And what happens is that they find this ship and they bring it in and they try to find out, what the ship is, where it comes from, why is it there? And all of a sudden there's this ghost kind of character that comes out of the ship, and it kills one of the people of the crew, and that person becomes a ghost immediately. So that's the whole mystery. Like, why do these people turn into ghosts automatically after they die? And what's the point to this? Who's controlling this? And it all centers on this ship. There's some funny writing on the ship, and nobody can figure out what it says. So here comes the doctor, and he finds his way to the crew, and then the crew explain everything that's going on. And the doctor's like, this is one big mystery, and he's obviously excited about it. I wish Melissa was here, because I'm pretty sure one of her favorite scenes would have been when he starts talking about the dead crew member that was a ghost, and he's being extremely insensitive. And the person who's now in charge of the crew, she's mute, so she can't speak. She has an interpreter, so she starts doing sign language. And the guy who's interpreting is like, hey, like, that was our crew member. And he realizes that he slipped up. So Clara says, give me your cards. He has a set of cue cards that have, like, that remind him what to say when he messes up. And they're really funny. I'll post the meme later on because it's been on Facebook. They show all the cue cards and say like, "I'm sorry that I have made fun of you," or "I'm sorry that I forgot you at this planet before it blew up." It's really funny. I'm not setting it up right, but he finds the card where it says, and he starts reading it. "I'm sorry about your loss and my insincerity in addressing it." And it ends with his or her or its death. Because he still doesn't have that sensibility of how to deal with people. He's still socially awkward. That whole scene's funny, but I completely screwed it up. Anyway, uh, so from then on, it's a whole race of how to deal with these ghosts. How do we beat them? Why are they here? And of course, the doctor finds out why they're there, because when he gets close to them, they all figure out that they're saying only 4 words. They keep saying 4 words. They can't hear them, but their lips are moving, and they say just 4 words all the time. And it's based on those 4 words that the doctor finds out that it's a signal transmission of some sort, and that the more people that get killed and turned into ghosts, the stronger that transmission gets. Now, where it goes to, what it's for, and what it means, he doesn't know, right? So the episode ends with the ghosts figure out how to break out of this one little place where they enclose them in, and they start flooding the tunnels. And the doctor says, "Let's go to the TARDIS. We have to get to the TARDIS so we can escape this." And they're running through the tunnels, and everything's shutting down. They put the automatic shutdown on the doors, and of course, the doctor makes it to the other side, but the doors come down, and the ones who get left behind are Clara, 2 crew members, and the doctor is stuck with 2 other crew members. And he tells Clara that he's going to go to the TARDIS, go back in time, and try to fix all this so that the flooding never happens and he saves everybody's lives. So she agrees, and he takes off, goes into the TARDIS, and Clara and those 2 other crew members that are left behind, they're freaking out because they're saying he left without us. And she says, "He'll be back. He always comes back. He always fixes things." And at that moment, they say, "What is that?" And when she turns around and she looks into the window, there is a body in the ocean. And when the body turns around, it's the doctor with his eyes hollowed out.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Letting her know that at some point he has died and now he's a ghost. So that's where we left off. And the following week, next week, we're going to, I guess, figure out exactly how it all gets worked out and why he got killed and did he really get killed and all that other good stuff.
Wow. Well, I'm only 5 episodes away from that, so
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's got a quicker pace. And what I liked about it was that the doctor isn't relying as much on Clara. He's starting to do more things. It's starting to get this feel like she's really not all that much more important anymore. And I want to know where this is going to lead to. Well, we all know where it's going to lead to because she's not coming back. But I want to know where all this goes.
Well, I mean, it seems like that's been happening for the entirety of the time of Capaldi, where he doesn't really care about Clara that much. He's just like, "Oh, you're here." It's like, so what? You're just kind of along for the ride. Whereas like Matt Smith was like really into her and like, "Oh, you're the most fascinating thing in the world, and I have to figure out all your secrets." And now it's just like, meh. So what?
Well, yeah, well, that happened because there wasn't any more secrets to Clara. Like,
Yeah,
it was all resolved. But he does really care about her. 2 episodes really show how much he cares about her. But this episode care about her. It's that he's not really relying on her for much. That's the way it seems anyway. Well, maybe he's preparing himself. I don't know.
I think they're just telegraphing the like, we know we're getting ready to switch companions. Everybody calm down. It's okay. I don't know. It's just so funny. It's like how fans aren't they don't hate Clara. They just like at this point most of them don't really care about her. They're just like, oh yeah, she's there. She's
I
fine.
like her. I like Clara. She's not my, and that could change. We don't know what's going to happen this season, but I mean, we know how it's going to end. We don't either anymore. Could grow into being my favorite companion over a series of events. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird because it's like it on paper, it seems like she's everything that we said that we wanted. She's
Right.
independent, she's sassy, she's she puts the doctor in his place. Um she's at times vulnerable. She has a life outside the TARDIS. She's smart. It's like if we took all of the complaints about previous companions and like made the opposite thing true, and then okay, well here's Clara Oswald. It's like, no, we don't like her either. Yeah. I think it just shows the fickleness of fandom. It's like we don't
We're never happy.
You try and give us what we want, and everyone's always going to be like, "Oh, but Amy Pond," and I include that myself in that. As much as we complain about all that.
Yeah, well, I think I'm over the Amy Pond. Well, I'm not over her as being my favorite companion, her and Rory, but I think I'm over the whole. I accepted that it's never going to come back. Fixed point in time. Get over it. I've already done that. I've gone through the 5 stages of grief already, and Clara has really grown on me. I like her as a companion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm enjoying my time with her. So we'll see where this goes. Let's take a little break, and then we're gonna come back to talk about all of Clara's secrets in depth at Trenzalore and the last 3 episodes of Mass Smith. So we'll be right back. All right. Well, Melissa doesn't need to stop and go take a pee break or a drink break or anything.
Doesn't need booze up.
I love that excuse. I got the Rangers. I am all sorts of distracted, and I'm just like, that's fine. I get it. I'm cool with that. What do you have going on that you wanted to try and do this earlier?
Oh, I had nothing going on.
Mm.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, let's do this early.
Oh, okay. Okay. You just.
Next week, if we don't do it early, then we're probably going to have to do it very late because I have my whole day spoken for, except for the morning. So if we can get it done like around, let's say 1 o'clock, that way we finish by 3 if we go long, then that would be perfect.
Okay. That works for me. I don't think we'll go long. I think these episodes where we can chunk them up a little bit more easily, because it's like, especially now that I'm past the point in watching where I'm not just chronicling what I watched this week. I'm watching what I've watched, or I'm talking about what I watched like several weeks ago now. Mm-hmm. It's not like we have to talk about all of those and fit all of them in. We could do like the new episodes and the first 3 episodes of Capaldi. And I'd in fact like it if we kept it closer to an hour. We just have a problem doing that because we are awesome at talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now with that, let's get right back into talking about stuff because, oh my gosh, the name of the Doctor. I feel like we could spend an entire hour just talking about this episode. We could talk about this episode for longer than it took this episode to run. Right. There's just so much here.
So much.
Yeah. So where do we even begin on this? And I guess the same is true for the next episode with the Day of the Doctor. But so the conference call drug, I guess.
That was so cool.
that was really cool. That it's like, oh, hey, we're gonna call everyone together, and I like that Madame Vastra tricked Clara into it. She's like, you can do it by lighting this candle, and she's like, screw that, like throws it away, and she's like, but because you might not do that, I've also treated the envelope with it, so boop. I'm like, you're so smart. um and then I love that then it was cool that they used this device to bring River into all of it. Is that River is like speaking to Clara and through Clara. So she's there, but it's like she's not really there. And there's that whole thing at the end where um, she says to the doctor, "You can see me," and he's like, "Yes, I can always see you." And he's just like, "Oh,
Yeah. The
oh."
feels, the feels.
Well, that's really the first time that I've ever felt like strong romantic feelings
Right.
like about them. Like I cared about their relationship, other than like it was just said, "Oh, they're married," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess, sure."
Yeah,
Um,
well, he loves her, and it really showed at the end of that episode. It just really showed that he loves her. He truly loves her, and it's not just we had to get married because we had to keep the universe together or anything like that. Like he actually really loves her, and it showed. So I really like that part. Um, yeah, but totally unexpected events, man. I remember watching this, and I'm like, Jesus, like they really got me. I had no idea we were gonna go there.
yeah, well, and literally go there,
Go there.
go to the end of the Doctor, and well, first of all, I mean the kind of screwing with the audience that they're doing by calling this the name of the Doctor, and then we're not talking about the name of the Doctor at all.
Well, the significance of the name Doctor.
Well, I mean, I guess, but
Yeah, this is Moffat effing with you and
yeah,
having fun with it.
yeah.
I
So
felt the same way because I was like, oh, we're finally going to know the name. Yes. And then we don't.
I I bet his name is like Bob.
I
It's just
think it's
like
like
some
Eugene or something embarrassing,
uh
like Malachi Sassy Pants or something like that. He's like, don't call me by my name, man.
yeah, Osweepe.
How's we pay?
So yeah, anyway, yeah, so I thought that was interesting, uh but they actually, so they go to his grave, and then we learn this whole thing about Clara and why she's been everywhere, because they open up that entire thing of his entire timeline, and then she has to go in and try and save him in all of those instances. And it's like, oh,
Right.
okay, that's really cool.
Yep.
Very good. Very good. Bravo. My hats off. My hats off to you, Mr. Moffat. And this was how they did this very well. And I think I said this a couple of episodes ago, where I felt like, rather than having these huge episodes and then dropping these storylines completely, instead we're teased with little breadcrumbs everywhere that leads up to a big deal, and like that's how you do it right. So I felt very, very happy with how they'd done this, and I felt that it both propelled the show along and these characters along, but it also expanded the mythos of the Doctor Who universe a ton. Um,
Yeah, and I've said it before. I love it when they bring in the old doctors, and Phil Hartnell doesn't always get the respect that he's due. The first Doctor ever,
mhm.
and I love that scene where she tells him, you know, that you're making a big mistake. That's not the one you want. You know, this TARDIS is better.
Yeah,
And he's actually having a conversation. I mean, it's like he's back from the dead. And it's so awesome, so great. I loved it. And I love the look of the original TARDIS. It was just a big, gigantic tube. And we know that there was changes, and we get the TARDIS that we know and love now. But it was cool seeing the origins of all that. And I think somebody makes a reference to that TARDIS being a broken TARDIS, or a malfunctioning TARDIS. But it ended up becoming the TARDIS that saves the universe time and time again. So this episode was just filled with so much awesomeness up until the very end. Oh, and we get to see the Doctor's soul.
Yeah.
And that alone was so cool. And the explanation that this is what happens when you travel for thousands of years and you've done so many changes in the timeline. You know, you don't get buried like a regular person because this is what remains of you.
Yeah.
That was so cool. So yeah, there's just so much love about this episode.
Yeah, and the iconography of what Trenzalore looks like, and that battlefield and the giant broken TARDIS above it all. It was just like someone had a great time designing all of this, and it looks perfect. And they really knocked all of this out of the park. I felt that this was just done so well.
Yeah,
I really don't have a bad thing to say about it.
It was pretty damn good. Like, would you want to go visit the place where you died? Would you want to see that? Would you want to see your gravestone? First of all, if I have a gravestone, I'm gonna be pissed at my family because I want to be burnt to a crisp. But like, yeah, just burn me. I don't even care. But like, would you want to do that? Is that something like a normal person would want to do? Like, do you think you'd be scared to approach your gravestone?
I don't know. That would be kind of funky. I don't know that I. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to.
I like that panic that Matt Smith had. Like, we shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. Like, I don't want to be here. I mean, it was tangible. This panic that he had. I like that in this episode.
No, I mean, I think we probably would all feel that way because even though we're mortal creatures, I don't think we like to confront that mortality if we don't have to.
Right.
So that was really well done. And you know, the other I can't imagine what this must have been like as a Who fan at the time, where you knew that you were coming to the end of Matt Smith, and then at the very end you see John Hurt, and they're like, and introducing John Hurt as the Doctor. Like,
right.
What? Like, I mean, I knew about this because I knew about the continuity of the War Doctor and so on and so forth. Before I started watching any of this. What did you do when you first saw that?
I squealed like a 5-year-old child.
Like, did you think that was the new Doctor? That's who you were going to get for the next season, or
the rumors were there. We didn't know how he was going to look or anything like that. But I thought, okay, all right, I guess he's coming next. And I thought, freaking awesome. Like, I mean, who wouldn't want him as the next Doctor? Are you kidding me? John freaking Hurt? I thought the show will finally get a form of respect with John Hurt being the Doctor.
mm-hmm.
I guess I thought like the show would be legitimized by, you know, an actual award-winning actor playing the part of the Doctor, and I was really excited. So I had no idea what they were going to do with him for the 50th anniversary. But yeah, I thought, okay, he's the next guy. This is cool.
Yeah. So let's then jump into that with the 50th anniversary, because man, is if the name of the Doctor was awesome, the Day of the Doctor just baffled me with how extremely good it was. And they must have spent a ton of money on this.
They did. Yeah.
And it looks like it too. It looks so good. and the acting's amazing. It was great to get Smith and Tennant there together,
Yeah.
and then interacting with John Hurt too. It was just fun mostly.
Yeah. So this has happened before. There's been doctors that have met before. As a matter of fact, in a spin-off episode that you didn't get to because Netflix doesn't have it, uh, David Tennant actually interacts with Doctor Number Five, Davison, who's
Mm-hmm.
actually his father-in-law.
Yes.
So there is an episode of that. And previous to all of them, there was an episode with Phil Hartnell, Patrick Thornton, and Sean Pertwee. John Pertwee. Sean Pertwee is his son, where they came together. So it's happened before, but David Tennant and Matt Smith work so well together. The interactive play between the two was spectacular. Just so good. We find out why Queen Elizabeth I was so pissed off at the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that was cool. So there was just so much awesome going on. Rose comes back, even though she's not my favorite companion. She comes back, quote unquote, because she's the the interactive console or
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever that was.
whatever the projection.
Yeah.
She's Patty Wolf. So having her come back was pretty cool. But for finally we see what led up to the destruction of Gallifrey. Finally, we see a doctor, a man with the weight of the universe on his shoulders, where he says, I have no other option. Like in the list of options where everything is horrible and terrible, this is the best of them, and it's still horrible and terrible. And I can't believe that I have to do this. We get the big red button,
Yeah.
where that's the choice to destroy everything that he loves and knows that he's ever loved, his people. I mean, that burden is way too much, and we get to see that. And of course, John Hurt being what he is, he emotes that perfectly because we see that tiredness in his face, and the weight of this burden. So perfect, man. I can't say enough about what he did with that character.
Yeah. Doing so much with so little, and like when he shows up and he's in that war ravaged city, and he burns out no more into that wall, and you're like, I get it, I'm with you, man. And like how many, it's in this episode, right, where he's like, how many children will die?
Right.
You'll learn to count that. And I love, yeah, the interactions between the three of them, and he's like, and this is what I become, the doctor who forgets and the doctor who regrets.
Right.
And that really sums up well a lot their feelings about what happened to Gallifrey and how that haunts them. It makes me wish that they could have enticed Eccleston to be there as well.
Yes.
I think that isn't something that's wrong with this episode, but it makes me wish that it had happened because it would have been even more interesting to have that there.
Yes, because there would have been that tough, tense interaction between the War Doctor and Eccleston, because he came right after. So
Yeah.
I think Eccleston was angry that Doctor, that version of the Doctor Number 10, was angry about what the War Doctor did, and we saw that there was that layer of anger throughout his entire run.
Yep.
So I would have loved to have seen like a clash of personalities between the two, where we have two doctors that are getting along very well with Tennant and Smith. I would have loved to have seen that tense interaction between Eccleston and Hurt. That would have been, oh my God, I would have been over the moon with that.
It would have been really interesting. And Eccleston, maybe even getting mad at Smith a little bit is like, how could you, this was a huge deal and you've just shoved it down inside yourself and you try to not let yourself think about it. We have to think about these consequences.
Right.
We have to deal with this. And, So I mean, it was great that Tennant was able to pick up some of that slack and do that on behalf of Eccleston, but I wish that could have been there because it would have been so much cooler. But still amazing.
Right. Yeah, it was completely amazing, and I love the story. I love the solution that they found to try and save Gallifrey. That was perfect.
Yes.
But before that, and it was a precursor to the solution, was when they were stuck in a room and they tried to use a sonic screwdriver to open the door, and John heard things like, "Wait a minute." Between the three of us, there's 300 years of difference. If I start with my sonic screwdriver, you know, Smith's screwdriver will be updated, with the information needed to open up the door.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like all high-fiving, and then Clara just walks in like, "Hey guys."
That was so good.
Did you not try opening the door?
Yeah.
And that was the solution. They were gonna send the software problem to the first Doctor, have him start working at it, and by the time they needed it, by the time the solution would come to Matt Smith. Like, that's how they took care of the problem of trying to save Gallifrey. That was brilliant. And then we got to see all the Doctors come in.
All the Doctors. And for someone who doesn't know any of the first 9 Doctors at all, that was possibly the coolest thing I have seen in sci-fi television in a dozen or more years. Like, that was just so cool. I mean, and I understood the weight of it, even not having experienced any of that. And then Mr. Angry Eyebrows shows up for 2 seconds too, and I almost peed my pants. I was like, oh, look who it is. I know those eyebrows.
That was brilliant. And this was right when it was announced who the next Doctor was going to be. So when I saw his eyes, I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
And he's like, all 12 Doctors, and he's like, 13.
That was awesome. And I love how the Council knows that the Doctor's out there fighting. They consider him being this crazy, Time Lord who's trying to get his way in the war. So they know that he's there. They know that he might have a solution. They're trying to buy him time. I love all that. There's so much in this one episode. Mm-hmm. Since you saw it on Netflix, did you see the very beginning where Doctor Number 9 drinks the elixir from the witches to become the War Doctor?
No.
Okay. Well, I should have said this to you like a long time ago. So, 2 seasons prior to this, they started playing around with like prequels, like little 2-minute prequels to episodes. And one of the prequels, and I thought maybe at least Netflix would have included this because this was a big thing. Before the 50th anniversary special played, we got Paul McGann, which is Doctor Number 9, kind of dressed like Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. And he gets to the witches, and they're having this conversation as to, do you know what you're going to do now? He's like, I think I know what to do. So he drinks the elixir, and he changes into John Hurt. We see the transition. It wasn't like a pure regeneration like we're used to. Mm-hmm. He had to drink an elixir to change who he was. I got to find that somewhere so you can see it, because that was really, really cool. And Paul McGann is one of those guys that doesn't get the credit he deserves because he only shows up in one movie, and it was an American-made movie, so a lot of people crapped on it. And the production was very low. I'll have to admit that. And what's his name? Julia Roberts' brother, Eric Roberts, comes out as the Master, and he hams the hell out of it. He's just so hammy. So it's not perfect, but I really like it. And it's part of the canon. So to see him get his due in the 50th anniversary just made me all sorts of happy. Man, I was fanboying that for weeks.
Well, and I can't imagine the sound of every Who fanboy's head exploding when Tom Baker shows up at the very end.
I literally jumped off of my recliner. Like, and I did a river walk dance, a river walk, or I did a river dance. Like I was doing the Irish two step. That was so cool. That was so cool, and it's heaped with meaning because Matt Smith says, "Who knows? Maybe I'll be a curator," and then we get Tom Baker, and
Yeah.
that's when he tells them, you still have a lot of adventures. You'll see old faces,
Yep.
and I want to know how they're going to work that in. Like I need to know.
Yeah. Well, I hope we're going to find out in these next few episodes. It's going to be really, really interesting. So we'll see. But yeah, this was um I I'm on the fence about whether this is my favorite episode I've seen so far or not. I kind of want to still hold on to like Blink, or maybe some of the others because, uh, to be fair, a lot of this felt a little bit fan servicey. It was supposed to be a
Yes.
50th anniversary. It was a greatest hits compilation. Uh, it was meant to fill that role, but so often that's done very poorly. And this was done excellently. I've actually never seen um, some sort of an anniversary episode, a bringing back old people sort of thing that is done as coherently and as well as this. So I'm I I really am like, yeah, this was absolutely amazing, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I know what they were doing. You cheeky manipulative jerks.
This was bridging the gap.
Yeah,
This was bringing old Whovians, classic Whovians, and new Whovians together, and it was done perfectly, beautifully, respectful of the previous doctors. It was perfect, Andy. Like I couldn't have wanted more. And to see my all-time favorite doctor have a conversation with my new favorite doctor at the end
yeah,
was just like I couldn't take it, man. I couldn't. I nerdgasmed all over the place.
yeah,
It was awesome. It was the greatest thing ever. And the way it ends with that shot with all the doctors
yeah.
it was just so good. There isn't a bad thing to say about this episode. They did it so well, and I just wish we had more of that. I want to include the former doctors. Um, I really want to. I don't know how. I don't know how they're gonna work it to. How did Tom Baker come back? Like, how do they explain that? I want an explanation. This opened up a whole set of questions for me because I'm like, how do we constantly get doctors coming back? Like, why are they crossing time streams? And how does he continue to get old if he's already regenerated? So there's a lot of questions that aren't answered yet, and I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer to them. But it left me feeling so positive about the future of Doctor Who.
I Oh, excuse me. Ugh, that yawn was not indicative of my feelings about this episode. Um, I kind of felt like this Tom Baker was not the fourth Doctor, though. That he was just the curator. That this this was supposed to be a different character, and so yeah, it was said with a nod and a wink, but it wasn't. I don't know.
I could understand that, but those who know Tom Baker, that with his nose,
Mm-hmm.
that was his thing.
Oh, okay.
The reference to "you'll see many more faces." The spoilers thing where he said, I wish I could tell you, but I can't." Like it's the fourth Doctor. It's Tom Baker. But we just don't know how he got there or how we're going to get there with him. I like to think, and we discussed this before, that at a certain point the Doctor's going to say, "I'm done. I'm done with this Doctor business. It's time for a new Time Lord to take over, and I want to live my life not being the Doctor." And then, becoming a curator at a museum. I think I like that idea, and in that way, everybody can have their female doctor, and it's going to kick ass.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like that idea. I wonder if they're thinking that.
Well, it seemed like they certainly were thinking that in the next episode.
Right. Right.
Where if we want to see the Doctor grow old and stop, well, I mean, he didn't stop being the Doctor, but um, I mean, after the high of the last episode, it's a Christmas episode, so I mean, I guess this is par for the course. But I just got a little bit disappointed for this, and I was sad that this was Matt Smith's final go, that it had to be this. It started off so cool and with so much promise, and then the last half of the episode, I just got bored. So that made me very sad. Just the whole idea of like, hey, uh, there's this rogue signal coming from this planet, and all of the evils of the universe are hovered around it, and we're gonna send you and Clara in to find out what's going on. Oh, and there's a crack in the wall.
Right.
They're bringing it all back together, and the whole thing. It's the town called Christmas, which I can. No, I can forgive it that, but the fact that they had a like a giant truth field over them, so everything had to be the truth all the time. That was fun, which was interesting because then that took away the Doctor's number one tool. The Doctor always lies, so I don't know. Maybe he was able to overcome that field, but sure didn't seem like it too much. But yeah, by the time the Doctor started getting old and was still like fighting off like random alien incursions and whatever, I don't know. It just didn't feel as interesting. And so I was kind of sad to see Matt Smith go, but I was ready at that point, I guess.
I wasn't ready, and I was angry that they ended it this way. I thought he went out like a punk.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I expected a lot more from him. I kind of understand why they did it, because Christmas is a town on the planet of Trenzalore. So the planet was Trenzalore. We know that at some point he's going to die there. So the planet has deep significance to him. I just wish we would have gotten more of that. I don't care about Tiny Tim.
Nope.
Or that little kid. I don't care. I hated that the Doctor felt that he had to stick around and get old. Yeah, it was disappointing. Kind of cool at the same time because we know that the power of regeneration is given by like a council of witches, and they gave him another round of regenerations.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. So that explained to us how it's possible for the show to keep moving on. So that was cool. But I wanted more, and I'm feeling this throughout from the middle part of the episode coming towards the end. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling like kind of disappointed, thinking he went out like a punk. But then we have scenes that are filled with emotion that are pretty damn good. Yeah. Where Clara shows up and he's really old, and she tries to get him to pop that firecracker thing, mm-hmm. or whatever they call them.
Yeah, the Christmas crackers.
Yeah. Christmas crackers, yeah. And he can't, and he's too old. That made me feel kind of weird inside because I'm so used to Matt Smith being that highly energetic young Doctor, and that he's old and he's kind of inept and losing all his power. That was kind of sad. But for me, the saddest part, and this really hit me, was when he sees young Amelia in the TARDIS. It broke me, man. Like it really welled up the tears because I was like, oh man, like the first face he saw, and he says that the first face I saw, the first face this face saw, and he sees her, and like I guess he's remembering all that, and then the camera turns to look at him, and when it turns back, it's Amy. and there's all that history with Amy, and
Yeah.
that it's a gut punch. It really punches you.
Yeah.
But it also gives you a feeling of like all this for nothing. Like you lost your connection with Amy. You've lost your connection with River. You've lost all these people, and at the end, you're saving some people from a planet that you're not from, and you're doing this out of regret for what happened with Gallifrey, and you're getting nothing out of this, dude. Like it's all for nothing. It really is.
Yeah.
And then we get the regeneration, and it's Peter Capaldi, which by that point I was like, okay, I want to see what this guy does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we'll get to that next week.
Yeah, but it's that feeling. I had that weird feeling where there was a lot of sadness. There was the feeling that justice isn't being done for Matt Smith, and it was just a weird set of feelings that I had. It wasn't enough. I wanted more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a thought when Rose showed up again as the interface for that device. I had a thought that Rose gets more interesting every time she comes back. I was ready for Rose to be done gone when she got sucked into the alternate universe with the Daleks. And then every time she came back, I'm like, oh, you know what? I like this character more. So and David Tennant comes back and just knocks it out of the park. So the best I can say is that I hope we get to see Matt Smith again.
Yeah, and he's said before that he's more than willing to come back, and it has to be done. But it still doesn't change the fact that he deserved a lot more than what he got.
Agreed.
He deserved a lot more. I think his version of the Doctor made the show as popular as what it is. I don't care what anybody says about David Tennant. David Tennant was great, but he was more of a cute face for all the fangirls. But Matt Smith was just, yeah, whatever. You're a fangirl. Matt Smith, to me, like embodied what the Doctor was. He's so full of curiosity, but he's got that streak of anger in him that shows up at the right moments. He's quizzical and curious. He's everything that the Doctor should be, at least to me anyway. So once again, to see him go out the way he did, it didn't sit well with me at all.
I like that you're calling me a fangirl.
You are.
And I like the fact that the eternal argument between Smith and Tennant people is exactly the same. Oh, you're just in love with him. You just think he's cute.
I don't think Matt Smith is cute. That guy is not good looking at all.
I know, but
He's
there's
not.
a million little
cool.
girls who.
But he's cool. He's like, I want him to be my best friend. Like, he's just really cool.
He is not cool.
He's cool.
He's geek chic, but he is not cool.
All right, geek chic. I'll give you that. That's right.
Like, I wear a bow tie now. Bow ties are cool. No, they're not. But that's okay. You do you, and I'll be okay, man. So yeah. I felt bad with that kind of unceremonious loss. Like I said, I thought the first half was great. Like when they're outside of Christmas and trying to get in, and suddenly there's weeping angels everywhere coming up out of the ground, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, and this episode is going to be so epic, and then it just like boop, nope. Yeah. So I'm sad. It felt like a ton of setup and then kind of an unceremonious loss, with the exception, like you said, of Amy showing up in that kind of epic hug before he turns into Capaldi and forgets everything.
I've got kidneys.
I'm Scottish. I'm Scottish.
Bring me a haggis.
So yeah, that was. We'll get to that next week because there's so much we could start going into on Capaldi right now. So that's what we're gonna do next week. I'm gonna get finished with these last 4 episodes I've got, and then next week we're gonna find out the end of this big cliffhanger with next week's episodes and find out whether the Doctor is a ghost or not, or what happened with that. So that'll be pretty fun. And I'm gonna go into Deep Breath, Into the Dalek, and Robot of Sherwood. We'll see. Maybe listen. I kind of feel we're not going to have Melissa back next week either.
Yeah,
And I
let's have her
kind
back
of,
for listen.
yeah, I kind of want to save that for her because I know how much she likes that episode. And I think just talking about those three will be enough. So we'll do that. Again, Into the Dalek is the first episode of Doctor Who I ever watched twice. So that was my first episode I ever watched a year ago, and was really happy to revisit it and pick up on a lot of things I didn't see the first time. So yeah, we'll do that next week. But thanks everyone for listening to this. Thanks everyone at Big Shiny Robot who hosts the podcast and keeps it up and running. And thanks, Mark, for being here as always. Thanks, Melissa, for taking a break and going to support her Texas Rangers and Dallas Cowboys, and for taking a vacation next week. But for the rest of you, we'll see y'all next time.
Cool. Later.
And that's over.
So you're gonna catch